I'm going to break down the heated debate that happened between CoffeeZilla and Caleb Maddix the other day. I think Coffee made a couple of key mistakes, and I'm going to share with you how I would have corrected them. And I think there were some pretty noticeable mistakes made by Caleb as well, and I'll make sure to point those out. I think CoffeeZilla went into this interview with the wrong game plan. He seemed to want to forcefully attack Caleb and make sure all of his points were very clear in a forceful manner, whereas I think if his goal was to get Caleb to be transparent and bring about some points that he wanted to discuss, I think a different strategy would have been more effective.
The fact that you do what you do is very admirable, because I understand there are a lot of people in the space that are fake gurus that don't know what they're talking about, and the courses they have don't actually impact people. And I can tell even before I just asked you, what's your life mission? Because that's my mission, is to help other people get to their life mission. And you shared it's just like, I want to basically expose the industry so I can make sure people are safe.
Caleb is already establishing a me versus them barrier. He's basically positioning himself as being outside of this idea or concept of fake gurus. He's positioning himself that he is not one. He then gets into virtue signaling by talking about life missions and impacting people. You'll notice this is very common throughout the whole interview, and this is very common throughout all of his interviews. What I think Caleb is trying to establish from the start is that his character can't be questioned because he is someone that is on a mission to positively impact people's lives. Therefore, if you're going to attack him, then you're essentially attacking someone who is out to positively affect the world. What Caleb does numerous times throughout this interview is he basically uses the move the goalpost fallacy, where basically when your opponent attacks an argument and defeats it, you shift your viewpoints to another topic that is harder to address until your opponent essentially gives up. He'll use his go-to catchphrase of changing the world or impact lives when he gets defensive. Watch for it.
Because you call it the greatest opportunity of our era. You say, I can say that with full ethics, all this stuff.
That I can.
But it turns out that the greatest opportunity is basically like repurposed copy pasta Reddit videos made by Fiverr people.
This was such a critical mistake by CoffeeZilla. He brings up a main discussion point of the YTA method being the biggest opportunity of our lifetime. Then he attacks Caleb's claim before he even gives Caleb a chance to respond to the initial point. He shifts the argument from the claim of YTA being this opportunity to YTA only teaching students to make videos using Reddit content. And the issue is Caleb now doesn't have to discuss his claim about YTA being this amazing opportunity. He can shut down Coffee's claim of Reddit videos and essentially win the argument, because when he refutes Coffee's claim, he's now putting Coffee in a position where he may have to revert back to the original argument after losing the side argument.
That's not at all what I teach. In fact, if you look closely at the Maths class, not a single time do I even talk about repurposing content.
Now the burden of proof is back on CoffeeZilla.
You said that he has a Reddit channel. That is just one of the channels he has. He owns dozens of channels, and just one of them is Reddit with that one voiceover that's kind of like automated completely. So
okay.
That's the first thing I would love to clarify, is not a single time do I ever talk about repurposing content. What I talk about is using OPC, and this is actually something, like, my goal for this interview is I want to impact people.
This was a very obvious tell of a lie. In an argument like this one, people are going to have their safe zones where they'll retreat to if they're feeling vulnerable. Notice how the topic is an important one, as it's the core criticism that CoffeeZilla has about the YTA method, and Caleb probably lied there. He immediately went back to his safe zone of impacting people, and that has nothing to do with the conversation. That's a non sequitur fallacy. It's a terrible poker face, and you can see it in CoffeeZilla's expression.
That's why I say there's power in patterns. For me growing up, I wanted to impact millions of people.
So that's why it's relevant that Devon, and it's not one channel. I showed one of his channels because I didn't want to show all his channels, but I have a list of them if you'd like to hear some of them. Can I read off some of these for you?
You can. He has multiple channels, but he has dozens of channels outside of that are not related to that.
Whoa, only 1 minute and 50 seconds ago in this conversation, Caleb said that Devon had just one YouTube account using Reddit content. So now we've caught Caleb in a lie. But also, more importantly, we know his tell.
Repurposing Reddit content is like a wave that you could have ridden if you got on it early on. The problem is it's being demonetized because this kind of lazy content, YouTube doesn't want it on their platform. And the truth about YouTube automation is this: you can't get a super high quality following, super high quality product without having a personality behind it.
This is a really strong argument by CoffeeZilla.
Now all of Devon's channels, he's no longer creating Reddit-specific channels. In fact, inside the YTA Masterclass, I specifically tell people with Devon not to start Reddit channels because you don't want content that is too easy to create.
As mentioned previously, CoffeeZilla got stuck in an argument about creating Reddit videos, which made it very easy for Caleb to tear down, and the burden of proof has been shifted back to CoffeeZilla. Because Caleb can always resort to this mystery black box and say that he teaches something else, knowing that CoffeeZilla has never gone through the course.
With that, Devin, yes, he made a lot of money with Reddit. I'll agree with that. A lot of his channels were that. Now Devin has literally over, I can name, like in my head, I have 5 channels that he has outside of Reddit that are still making him money.
This was really good positioning by Caleb. He agrees with CoffeeZilla to establish that he's correct on one point. However, he's completely wrong about the entire argument. This was good dialogue by Caleb.
In fact, he launched a channel 3 months ago, and in the first 2 videos, not in the Reddit niche, the first 2 videos that he launched, where one got, I think it was 4 million views, and the next one got 1 million views. He did it completely automated. It wasn't in the Reddit niche, and he blew up that fast.
Caleb left a huge opening by introducing Devon's new channels. CoffeeZilla's big mistake here was not pressing further on proof of these channels. What you always want to do in an argument is walk your opposition into a trap. In my opinion, you never want to feel like you're throwing the trap at them. What we just saw is essentially Coffee throwing the argument at Caleb with exclamation. Think about it like this. If you want to catch a lion, you don't just throw the trap at them. You give them a little bit of meat here and there slowly so that they can walk into the trap themselves, and bam, you got them caught. I think what CoffeeZilla should have responded with are 3 questions. The first question, can you provide the names of these new channels? This would have left Caleb with 2 options. Either A, he would have provided the channels, giving the audience a chance to analyze them, or B, Caleb would have said he's not going to give out the channel names. This introduces doubt in the audience because we all understand that people are generally not transparent when they have something to hide. Second question, if you're not willing to give all the names, can you provide the general topic of these videos or channels? This now puts Caleb in a tough position because he's going to have to give up the info that could be very disparaging, or he's left with the same answer of saying, I'm not going to give up the data. This would create even more doubt from the audience. And lastly, the third question, Devon began his YTA career creating easy videos. How is he now an expert in these new channels, and what are his credentials for creating these new channels? Caleb would now be put in a very difficult position. CoffeeZilla's entire point is that success on YouTube comes from the creator themselves, their unique skill, and the creativity put into these videos. Caleb will now have to choose between A, resorting to, I'm not giving that info out for the 3rd time, which would essentially end his case, or B, he need to be transparent and risk exposing himself in this method. At this point, he still seems to be hiding something.
A lot of it was because they were just Instagram
Where's
videos. They were taken straight from his Instagram story. Okay.
Also, there was dozens that weren't. But what's the proof?
No. The proof is this. You just admitted where he made most of his money was Reddit back in the day, and he's having to shift away from that. And you never explained to the audience. Don't you think it's disingenuous to never explain to the audience that the way this guy made the majority of his money that you know of, the majority of his money is through a system that no longer works?
Again, CoffeeZilla keeps hammering the same point instead of walking Caleb into a trap. Caleb said, where's the proof? This was such a perfect opportunity for CoffeeZilla to ask questions. To this point, Coffee has provided numerous channels that Devon has that relies on Reddit content. He should have responded to Caleb, asking Caleb to provide the channel names of all of these dozen channels that aren't Reddit videos. This would have shifted the burden of proof back to Caleb, and Caleb would again be walked into a trap. He would either provide the channel names, which Coffee could look up right there in his browser, or Caleb would have been forced to again say he's not willing to give up the information, creating even more doubt in the audience's minds.
And that same
thing, he can make the majority of his money for that.
This was such a golden opportunity for CoffeeZilla to then force Caleb into being super transparent. Here's what you ask. You claim that he didn't make a majority of his money from Reddit videos. Can you please provide the numbers on where his revenue is coming from and which channels are providing this revenue? I can't stress it enough. You always want to shift the burden of proof onto your opposition, and you always want to put them in a position where they have to either be transparent or look like they're hiding something.
And for me, is it what I believe is the greatest thing ever to do? No, for me, I believe I want to impact millions of people. I believe the greatest thing for me is going to be the fact that I'm going to change the education system, which I want to dive deeper into.
Here, Caleb retreats back into his position of changing the world. We know what that means.
Let me try to run you through the real greatest opportunities of our era. The real greatest opportunity of our era was getting in the ground floor on Facebook, was getting in on the ground floor of Twitter, on any of these tech companies. Trying to get into a saturated YouTube market is the greatest opportunity of our era. It's such textbooks like sales manipulation.
CoffeeZilla should have asked Caleb if he knew how many creators never reach a point of monetization. My guess is it's most. He could have then asked for specific data on the people in Caleb's course on how many succeed and how many do not. He pitches the product as being the greatest opportunity of our era, but does he understand how saturated YouTube already is? They need to come to a common ground on this belief, I believe. YouTube is essentially a zero-sum game. If I'm getting views, then that is less views going to other creators. The more creators that enter into the market, the less piece of the pie we all receive. Building a YouTube audience is extremely difficult. Even the channels that take off and to most people seem like overnight successes might take years to get any traction.
First of all, YouTube gets 1.8 trillion views every single year. To me, that's not saturated. And secondly, it's doubled this year. It is doubled within a year. A company that's already one of the biggest companies in the world, that one of the biggest companies in the world, Google, already owns, it is doubled. For you to call that saturated to me is unbelievable.
Caleb seems to think that 2x in revenue is a big deal, but he doesn't seem to understand that on an established platform like YouTube, that revenue generally shifts to the top. Because of the way the algorithm works, people with large followings and high view counts will always be the first to profit and receive any of this new revenue, and maybe some at the end trickles down to the bottom. This is how essentially our society works. Look at wealth inequality. Success, wealth, subscriber counts, everything rises to the top first. That's just how it works.
Do you think lying while selling is ever justified?
I don't believe so, no.
This was an excellent question by CoffeeZilla. This is what I'm referring to by walking your opposition into a trap. You'll see this later on.